Hi, I'm Dooner, and I'm an alcoholic, but I'm also a podcaster. For me, these two stories are very intertwined. This isn't a session about how to podcast or what a podcast is. Instead, we'll talk about why podcast, finding your voice, and turning destructive negative energy into positive creative flow. There's 250,000 active podcasts, but that's just a drop in the bucket compared to the number of YouTube channels, Facebook pages, Instagram sites, etc. That means also there's a lot of opportunity, even for individuals or businesses. You may think it's too late to start. You've heard about podcasting. Your nephew has one. You may think about your budget. Oh, does it cost a lot of money to get started? Well, if marketing dollars brought in audiences, we'd all be watching Anna Kendrick befriend a sex doll on Quibi. Now, I could litter the stage with facts about podcasting and its growth, but instead, maybe you can find your why and your journey through mine. The gateway to my new life began on the morning of November 5th, 2016 at McLean Hospital in Belmont, Massachusetts. That's a dual diagnosis facility for alcoholism and mental health. It's also actually the place that Girl Interrupted was filmed. And I'll tell you, when they admit you there and you walk through it, you actually go through those same catacombs that Angelina Jolie was chasing Winona Ryder through in that film. Talk about disconcerting. But this was one of the most important and crucial days of my life, walking through the doors of that facility. Because the story of getting there started probably when I was 18, when I first realized, or maybe didn't realize, but first became an alcoholic when I got to college and started drinking every single day. And this is a problem that persisted throughout my life. The pints of beer became pints of vodka. Those became handles. There was an 8-year stretch where I drank nearly every single day except when I had the flu. In 2016, I was working for a freight and logistics company in Boston, Massachusetts. I got the dreaded email one day. I was in sales, and I got the email that says, bring in your cell phone and your laptop. This was in October of 2016. So I did. I brought it in there, and at the time, I was trying to pitch this company on the idea of podcasting. Wow, it would be this great Trojan horse, so I could go and talk to other clients about their business in a maybe natural way instead of trying to pitch them on freight, which is what my industry did. The company didn't like that idea, nor did they like me, and I didn't like them that much either. My wife was 8 months pregnant at this time. I was deep, deep, deep in the throes of alcoholism. So deep, in fact, that when I left that meeting where I turned in my laptop and my cell phone, they handed me my last check, and my first thought when I got behind the wheel wasn't, wow, what am I going to do now? No, it was, I'm going to go to the liquor store and think of all the time I have to get freaking hammered. And I did. And I did that for over a week. And mind you, as I just said, my wife is 8 months pregnant. Where were my priorities? Then on the night, or maybe I should say the morning of November 5th, I had a realization. I had to take control of my journey, and I had to speak up for myself. I had to find my own voice. And I did that by telling on myself to my parents, a mentor of mine that I know who went through a similar journey of sobriety, and my wife. And I said, you know what, if I don't go into rehab tomorrow, you have to force me. And for me, this was a life or death decision, right? This is life or death. I am thinking of just obliterating myself. So we did. We walked through that facility. We walked through those catacombs at McLean Hospital. And I remember there I started journaling, and I wrote this journal, The Happiest I'd Never Been. And I had a therapist there who was really, really getting in my head about being where you are, but also about the power of these negative habits that we develop, right? And how we can rebuild and rewire ourselves with a sense of purpose. Now, to me, that seemed a little farcical, but I knew one thing. I knew one thing when I walked through those doors, that I could do two things. When your life is spiraling out of control, you need to take control. And for me, taking control was that decision to take that ride there, but also to start podcasting. That seems a little bit silly, right? Because I don't do a podcast about sobriety. I don't do that at all. In fact, I do a podcast similar to what I wanted to do when I got fired, which is in freight, which a lot of you listening might be like, that sounds like the most boring thing I've ever heard in my life. Why would I listen to a podcast about freight? But for me, it's what I knew. And for me, that was the challenge, to make that interesting. And for me, that was a conduit. That was something that I could do. So when I got out of the facility, I was in there for 6 days. And here's a little tip for you. If you don't want to stay in a rehab facility for 6 or 7 days, you want to just stay for those 5, check it on a Monday. Don't do it on a Saturday like I did. It's hard to get out of there. But it was a powerful and a crucial decision. A lot of things didn't work for me. I went to like AA and I went to all those meetings, but for me, all I heard was people who, they didn't sound happier, right? This didn't seem like an easy road. And for me, I wanted to make podcasting a part of my recovery, a part of my journey, and a part of that rewiring. So I started doing it in the field that I knew best, which was freight. And for me, it was like, you know, I have the kid, I have the wife, but I'm so low on myself. You know, that was rock bottom. I was so low on myself that having something, not just a child, not just a wife, not just a family, but this other element, this other item I could build on and it could be part of my recovery, that is the conduit that podcasting is and was for me, still is to this day. I remember getting home from rehab and the first thing that I had to do was my laptop got taken away by the company that had just fired me. So I fire up Amazon, and granted, I don't have much money. I spent about half that week's paycheck on vodka. So I had to get a used laptop off Amazon. I remember it was like $250, and the big thing for me was that it had an SSD. And if you guys are into editing, you know how important that can be. The other thing I got was a $15 Chinese condenser mic off Amazon and an $89 mixer with a USB. I had no money, but money's not really a barrier to entry. And what I did when I first started doing those initial shows, when I would start reaching out, and I was trying to use it as a bit of a Trojan horse, like, hey, I started this podcast, now I have this experience before, maybe you also, you know, would like to give me a job. Didn't happen that quickly. Didn't happen that quickly at all. In fact, for the first 3 months, I didn't make any money. You know, well, that's kind of a lie. My dad was my one and only Patreon. I made $10 a month for my dad. Thank you, Dad. God bless you. The other challenge was that when you're not making money, you can't pay people. So my first co-host that was with me, he ditched me. And at the same time, I'm trying to get interviews for jobs. You know, maybe I can supplement this whole podcasting thing by getting another job, maybe in marketing, in freight. That didn't work out. In fact, I went to a number of large freight companies and said, the first thing you're gonna have to do is stop that damn podcast. It was happening so often that I started a secret podcast reviewing snack food with a buddy of mine that I knew from Twitter but had never met in my life who lives in Idaho. And at the end of every episode, I'd have my 3-year-old review some sort of snack food on there. That was a good time, and I'm really glad that I didn't listen to a lot of those companies. And you got to remember, there's a lot of pressure on me. You know, we had an infant at home. You have different companies in Boston area saying, yeah, you can come in, but you have to do that. I'm very happy and very fortunate that I ignored all of those, and I persisted for even longer because a local company out there, just this upstart company that really wanted to get their message out, they started hearing my podcast. And the owner of that company reached out to me. And he was like, I'll give you $1,000 a month to ghostwrite some blogs and to make a podcast for us. Whoa, fantastic. Now, you do the math on that. That's $12,000 a year. It's not going to get you very far down the street, especially with a couple kids, car seats to buy, and baby food. But the fact of the matter is that it was my chance. It was my opportunity, and it put life back in this system. And I think if you talk to most founders, they have these crucial moments where you're about to either give up hope, or you're about to run out of money, or you're about to give up on yourself. And I got to say, the easiest thing about finding your voice is having other people tell you to use it. That includes my wife and my parents, and I'm sure you can find those sort of touchstones within your life. Now, what this afforded me was the opportunity to really, really expand the content marketing, right? Content marketing within a freight ecosystem. And this is like a very old world. Just as boring as a podcast on freight sounds, so is the marketing world of freight by and large, especially at this point in time. The company I work with now, FreightWaves, wasn't around yet. We hadn't really flipped the script. We hadn't changed the game. And therein comes FreightWaves. I mean, this is one of the most amazing things about opportunity and about talking to people and about learning to use your voice and being able to ask for stuff, is I'm working at this company for about a year now. And I interviewed the CEO of this upstart company. They just raised $30 million. This company called FreightWaves in Chattanooga, Tennessee, which for someone like me who's up in Boston, I don't know, where the hell that is. I don't know it from Timbuktu. Turns out it's quite a great city. Great city and a great place for a TEDx talk. But that said, he reached out to me and he said something very crucial. And this is something I wouldn't have dreamed of happened. I was just trying to keep myself alive when I got out of rehab and try to be there for my kids. But he said to me, I want you to come out here to Chattanooga and I want you to build the biggest freight podcasting network you can think of. And I was afforded that opportunity, which is amazing to think of because this did not exist. This did not exist on November 4th. This didn't exist on November 5th, the day I walked into rehab in 2016. So it's amazing to be sitting here, and it's even more powerful and impactful to be sitting here at a TEDxChattanooga to be recounting this story of my time doing it. One of the biggest things I've learned so far, and I think it's something we can all do, and I don't think you have to do it through podcasting, right? I think you can do it in any avenue of life, but especially something creative, is using your energy and using your belief and turning that negativity into positivity. And I know that sounds superficial and that sounds like bullshit and that sounds like something everybody would say, but I can tell you firsthand that that really does work, because believing in yourself and having other people believe in you can be that guiding light, can be that touchstone. Then from there, what you're really looking to do is to find your audience. And that's what your voice comes in. That's what your voice comes down to, bringing that confidence. It was Maya Angelou who said, we've learned that people will forget what you said. People will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. Redirecting that addictive energy to positive platforms, reusing those bad habits, converting them into good ones. Now it's your turn. Find that voice and use it. For me, it has saved my life.